Chapter 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Who am I? Where am I? What am I supposed to do? These questions bubbled up in Bai Lan's mind as she took in the scene. Wasn't I just watching TV? How did I end up in this pitch-black forest? And who's the white-haired old dude in front of me, wielding a katana and wearing a mask? Seriously, do creatures like that even exist? It's got feet on its head, a tongue that drags on the ground, fingers like sharpened knives, and skin the color of ash, like a friggin' demon. Wait, demon. A tengu mask with white fur, a katana, and that blue and white kimono. Isn't that Urokodaki Sakanji, the character trainer from Demon Slayer, Kimetsu no Yaiba, the show I was just binge-watching? Did I just time travel? The thought hit Bai Lan like a ton of bricks. She immediately dismissed any idea that this was some kind of prank. Bai Lan's thinking was sharp and logical. She appeared here suddenly, without any blackout or memory loss, since she wasn't unconscious. A prank was impossible, which meant some kind of supernatural force had to be at play. Given the whole bizarre situation, time travel was the only explanation. Time to test something. But with that thought, Bai Lan started reaching out in her mind. What was she reaching for? Duh, her cheat. Every time traveler gets some kind of golden ticket, right? And if it shows up, that's a one-way ticket to yep, this is real. Ding. Comprehension boost system activated. Binding to host. Binding successful. Current host, Bai Lan. Okay, so it's real, Bai Lan said, the mechanical voice confirming her suspicions. So, this whole scene is legit. Thank God there's a trainer here. I would have been Monster Chow before I even learned how to hold a sword. Looking at Urokodaki Sakanji with his Nichiren blade, Bai Lan breathed a sigh of relief. She knew she couldn't take on a demon, not without any skills. Even the weakest demon would wipe the floor with her bare hands. Demons can only be killed by a Nichiren blade or sunlight, or by burning them to a crisp. System, newbie package, stat. Bai Lan asked the system. Systems always have some kind of starting bonus. No sooner had she thought it than the system chimed in. Ding. Newbie package distributed. Please access in system space. Bai Lan immediately dove into the system. The system space was like a backpack from any MMORPG, broken into a grid. Except instead of being limited, it was infinite, and the newbie package was in the first slot. Ding. Newbie package used. Gained X100 comprehension boost. Huh. Bai Lan stared at the item description. System, what's that even mean? Is there a limit to the number of times comprehension can be boosted? Please explore system functions yourself. The system replied in a cold tone. Bai Lan twitched, then started digging into the system menus. Urokodaki Sakanji had things under control. She'd be safe for the moment. As a former Hashira, even if he's retired, no demon short of the 12 Kazuki could stand a chance. Still, to take this long. Maybe he was holding back. Either way, Bai Lan wasn't complaining. She backed behind a boulder to stay out of the line of fire. Finally, she figured out how her powers worked. Bai Lan's power was comprehension amplification, allowing her to understand skills, even bloodline abilities, and use them. Like the bloodlines in Naruto, she could force the issue and just understand how they worked. It wasn't free, though. It required comprehension points. You got points for killing enemies. 10 times the comprehension costs 100 points, 100x costs 1000, and so on. Special items could also be converted into points. It wasn't as amazing as the kinds of systems she'd read about in web novels. The characters in those stories had unlimited buffs and abilities for free. But this one felt right. Like she was earning her strength. At that moment, she heard silence. Peeking her head out, Bai Lan saw that Urokodaki Sakanji had already killed the demon. It was disintegrating into ashes. That's what happens when you chop a demon's head off with a Nichiren blade. Bai Lan took a deep breath and stepped out. Before she could thank him, Urokodaki Sakanji spoke first. Boy, what are you doing in the mountains at this hour? Bai Lan, huh? Boy. Chapter 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bai Lan never expected that time travel would turn her back into a kid. One minute he's a young man in his 20s, the next, a 12-year-old boy. No wonder Rentagaki Sakanji was talking to him like that. 12 is definitely kid territory. So, you have no idea why you were in those mountains? Just that you woke up and saw me fighting that demon? Sounds like that evil spirit snatched you. You're lucky you're still in one piece. Inside the small wooden hut on Sayajiri Mountain, Bai Lan and Rentagaki Sakanji sat facing each other. Rentagaki Sakanji's face, hidden behind his mask, was thoughtful. He'd just heard Bai Lan's story, or rather, the lack of one. Bai Lan had no clue why he'd been there. Rentagaki Sakanji figured a demon must have grabbed him. But Bai Lan got lucky, kidnapped, but not eaten. Yeah, that's pretty much it, Bai Lan agreed, nodding. I see. Where's your family? I'll take you home, Rentagaki Sakanji said, ready to send Bai Lan on his way. Well, I don't have a home, Bai Lan said, scratching his head, embarrassed. He had no family in this world, and he was alone in his previous life. Rentagaki Sakanji looked surprised. Sorry, where do you live? He asked, rephrasing. Hey, Mr. Rentagaki, could you teach me demon-slaying swordsmanship? Bai Lan asked. Why? Rentagaki Sakanji's tone was surprised. Most people would run from demons, not sign up to fight them. Usually, the recruits he trains for the Demon Slayer Corps are orphans he's taken in. He'd never had someone just walk up and volunteer. Because I have a feeling I'll run into demons again, and I need to be able to protect myself. And right now, you're the only one I know who can give me the power to fight them, Mr. Rentagaki. Bai Lan didn't bother with heroic talk about slaying evil. He was just being honest. He wanted the power to deal with demons. Hearing Bai Lan's blunt explanation, Rentagaki Sakanji fell silent, lost in thought. Bai Lan waited patiently. He'd already made up his mind. If he couldn't get training from Rentagaki Sakanji, finally, Rentagaki Sakanji spoke. I get it. I'll teach you to become a demon slayer. Bai Lan's reasoning was normal, human. Some people who faced demons are terrified and want nothing to do with them ever again. Others, though, find courage and want to face them head-on. They become demon slayer swordsmen, guided by demon slayer trainers. Bai Lan was clearly the latter. It was the first time he'd encountered this type of situation, and he wouldn't refuse. His hesitation came from the fear of training another recruit. Except for Zhou, none of the students he'd trained over the years had survived the trials and become full-fledged demon slayers. He worried Bai Lan would suffer the same fate. But as a trainer, he couldn't turn away someone like Bai Lan, who actively chose this path. Members of the Demon Slayer Corps were rare enough as it was. Even if the recruit he trained ended up dying, that couldn't stop him from training others. Thank you, Mr. Rentagaki. Bai Lan said respectfully. Come with me, up the mountain. Rentagaki Sakanji nodded. Bai Lan's expression turned serious. He knew what Rentagaki Sakanji's training was like. Without his golden finger, Bai Lan would be going through the same grueling routine as Tanjiro, but now, with his powers, he could skip a bunch of steps and master incredible strength quickly. He didn't need all that basic training, or at least, not that kind of training. Mastering the breathing method was priority one. With that thought, Bai Lan hesitated. Mr. Rentagaki, he said, could you maybe show me some of that breathing technique you were using before? Huh? Rentagaki Sakanji stopped, surprised. You saw the breathing technique I used? His tone was shocked. No doubt his face, hidden by the mask, showed it too. He hadn't expected Bai Lan to recognize his full-focus breathing technique from the fight with the demon. Yeah, I pick things up fast. I'm pretty observant, too. I can usually learn stuff from just seeing a few details, Bai Lan explained. He was exaggerating, but unless he said something, Rentagaki Sakanji might not teach him the breathing method so soon. He'd probably wait a while, like when he was training Tanjiro Kamado. If he could learn it early, he could practice and get ahead. So, a genius? Rentagaki Sakanji understood immediately. He paused, then nodded, agreeing to Bai Lan's request. He sat down again and began to explain the breathing technique. Alright, I'll teach you the full focus breathing method now. Listen up. Breathing techniques strengthen your heart and lungs, so your blood can absorb tons of oxygen really fast. This gives you a massive boost of physical strength, enough to temporarily match a demon's. The breathing style I use is water breathing, and the swordsmen I train are water swordsmen. Ding! 100-fold increase detected. Activate. Chapter 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Ding! Host is receiving instruction. Use 100-fold increase. Use. Bai Lan didn't hesitate, instantly choosing the option. This was her only shot at amplified comprehension, her sole chance to get stronger. Ding! 100-fold comprehension increase successful. Ding! Congratulations! Host has comprehended water breathing. Ding! Congratulations! Host has comprehended perfect sun breathing. Host, Bai Lan, abilities, water breathing, sun breathing, comprehension points, 0. The moment the system chimed, a flood of information poured into Bai Lan's mind. Simultaneously, her body began to subtly change as her understanding deepened. These were the changes happening in her body after understanding water and sun breathing. I actually grasped full focus breathing, constant state in one go. And the perfect version of sun breathing. So that's what the perfect version of sun breathing is like. No wonder it's so hard to master. Besides Yoriichi Tsujikuni, the founder, the sun breathing that Tanjiro and Tanjiro Kamado understood was just a watered-down version. All they got were the breathing techniques and moves. Bai Lan was overwhelmed as she felt her body change, no doubt about it. Sun breathing was off the charts, no wonder Yoriichi Tsujikuni was so terrifying hundreds of years ago, nearly taking down Muzan Kibutsuji, who'd been hanging on by a thread for decades. Sun breathing has 4 elements. First, the breathing is the technique itself, drawing power from the sun. Even at night, traces of sunlight linger in the air and on the earth. Second, there's the cycle of 12 forms and moves. Naturally, techniques derived from sun breathing carry solar power and are particularly effective against demons. The injuries Yoriichi left on Muzan's body remained for good reason. Third, sun breathing enhances the body. Other breathing methods mainly boost heart and lung function, allowing the blood to absorb massive amounts of oxygen in short bursts. This temporarily increases physical abilities to near-demonic levels, but doesn't contribute to actual physical training. Physical conditioning is usually achieved through conventional exercise. But the perfect version of sun breathing absorbs sunlight, converts it into bodily energy, and gradually strengthens the body. Yoriichi Tsujikuni could critically wound Muzan in an instant because of the explosive power of his breathing and his own physical strength. His immense power centuries ago filled Muzan with despair, and a superior physique was essential to that, even in old age. Yoriichi possessed the power to kill demons instantly. The reason he didn't kill Kokoshibo was simply because he couldn't bring himself to do it. Had he really tried, Yoriichi's final blow would have turned Kokoshibo to ashes. Absorbing sunlight for strength isn't something ordinary people can do. Out of the 3 sun-breathing users in the original stories, only Yoriichi managed it. Tanjiro Kamado certainly couldn't, otherwise, he wouldn't have died young. Tanjiro Kamado barely uses sun-breathing, and prolonged use puts a huge strain on his body, never mind using sunlight to train. And fourth is the crimson-red Nichiren blade and the Demon Slayer mark, as well as the transparent world. The perfect version of sun breathing can instantly turn the Nichiren blade crimson red at will, and unlock the Demon Slayer mark without lifespan concerns. Additionally, it grants access to the transparent world. The breathing style was originally created by Yoriichi Tsujikuni, who had the transparent world. It stands to reason he understood it perfectly. Now, with a 100-fold increase in understanding, Bai Lan had also mastered the perfect version of sun breathing. She didn't need to try. As soon as she acquired sun breathing, her body automatically began to cultivate it. In terms of martial arts, it was perfection. Bai Lan achieved perfection the moment she obtained sun breathing. The tank had been expanded. All that remained was to slowly fill it with water. When the tank was full, it meant Bai Lan had pushed sun breathing to its limit. This limit was the limit of sun breathing that Yorichi Tsujikuni created. Whether Bai Lan could surpass it depended on her own ability. As for water breathing, it was pushed aside. Sun breathing was just too powerful, leaving no room for water breathing. Even if Bai Lan tried to practice water breathing, her body would subtly shift to sun breathing, activating the transparent world. Bai Lan could clearly see what was happening in Sakanji's body, his instinctive breathing, his finely tuned muscles. It was an incredible sensation. Bai Lan could effortlessly predict Sakanji's next move just by these changes. It was a fantastic support ability. But even with a 100-fold increase in comprehension, I haven't grasped an ability beyond what the original sun breathing technique provided. My own understanding is truly lacking. After mastering sun breathing, Bai Lan reflected and couldn't help but feel disappointed with her own comprehension. This is... You actually learned it. Across from Bai Lan, Sakanji Urokadaki had just finished explaining water breathing, and noticed a familiar aura on Bai Lan's body. It was the breathing pattern of someone who had mastered a breathing technique, meaning Bai Lan had truly mastered breathing during his lesson. No, this is constant state. Not only did she learn water breathing, but she skipped the initial stage and mastered constant state. What a freak. Before Urokadaki could process Bai Lan mastering water breathing, he made another discovery and lost his composure. He was truly terrified. He hadn't believed Bai Lan when she called herself a genius. But her request wasn't unreasonable, so he agreed. He had no expectations, but Bai Lan had given him a huge surprise. She had instantly grasped the breathing technique and mastered constant state. Mastering constant state with improved physical fitness and combat skills essentially meant pillar-level strength. If he didn't know for certain that Bai Lan hadn't practiced breathing techniques before and was a completely ordinary person, he would have thought she was a recruit being groomed for years. Mr. Urokadaki, I learned it. Bai Lan snapped out of her thoughts and back to reality. Looking at Urokadaki Sakanji, she smiled. Okay, very good. You're indeed a genius. No, a freak. Come with me up the mountain now. Hearing Bai Lan's voice, Urokadaki collected himself and said emotionally, he still needed to take Bai Lan up the mountain. He had various training methods for swordsmen. Whether mechanisms or not, they would train Bai Lan's physical strength, reaction speed, and combat skills. Demon Slayer swordsmen need more than just breathing techniques. Physical fitness and combat skills are also essential. Yes, Mr. Urokadaki. Chapter 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Damn, the kid's seriously talented. Nintaki Sakanji, hidden in the shadows, watched Byakuran breeze through his traps without a scratch. His masked face twitched, and he sighed, frustrated. He'd spent over half a year in the French reserves learning about and setting up these traps. Over time, he'd tweaked them to be as brutal as possible, but they were useless against Byakuran. The kid navigated the carefully constructed mechanisms with ease, either avoiding them altogether or flat-out destroying them. But Byakuran's water breathing is already at a decent level, and he can unleash some serious power. I guess this kind of outcome was inevitable. Whatever, if the traps aren't working, I'll just teach him swordsmanship directly. Nintaki Sakanji shook his head, abandoning the idea of using the traps to train Byakuran. He'd just start teaching him the sword. Of course, Byakuran had no clue what Nintaki Sakanji was thinking. Right now, he was having a blast playing around in the booby traps on Sayajiri Mountain. These things are perfect for him, don't get him wrong. Byakuran has mastered the breath of the sun, maxed it out. There are no roadblocks to further training. If you give Byakuran enough time, Byakuran will be able to rise. He could reach the pinnacle of sun-breathing swordsmanship, on par with Yorichi Tsujikuni, but let's be real, Byakuran is just a kid with crazy power right now. Against seasoned fighters who've been through countless battles, he'd get wrecked. Of course, against weaker opponents, Byakuran could easily crush them with his raw power, just using the breath of the sun's brute force to overwhelm those weaker than him. But when it comes to technique and experience, Byakuran is severely outmatched by those who are weaker but have seen real combat. Byakuran is like a kid holding a superweapon, just waiting to grow into it, and that growth means combat skills and experience. The training traps that Ningtaki Sakanji recently used to train and cultivate breathing swordsmen are very suitable for Bai Lan's current situation. It allows Bai Lan to exercise his body's reaction ability, practice combat skills, and gain combat experience. He was ready to live here for 2 weeks. Byakuren remembered in the original story that Kamado Tanjiro experienced updated traps daily. Just like Kamado Tanjiro said, Ningtaki Sakanji seemed to be in its like trying his best to kill him. Byakuren was looking forward to Ningtaki Sakanji setting up stronger mechanisms to make the mechanism more powerful. These mechanisms are now unable to cause any harm to him. Little did he know, the course he was running now was the absolute limit of Ningtaki Sakanji's abilities. Byakuren's idea was doomed to fail. No more mountain training. Byakuren, still wired from playing on the mountain all night thanks to his breathing technique, was chowing down on the hot pot Ningtaki Sakanji made. He stopped, fork halfway to his mouth. When he heard Ningtaki Sakanji's words, he was psyched for Ningtaki Sakanji to set up even tougher traps to help him practice his reflexes, but suddenly, he's being told he doesn't need to go. What? Yeah, those traps last night were the toughest I could make. And you breezed through them, so they're not doing you any good anymore. You're a real freak of nature. Ningtaki Sakanji looked at Byakuren, his masked face a mix of emotions. Byakuren was shocked, then embarrassed. He hadn't realized he'd already maxed out the course. He thought it was just a warm-up. So, the breath of the sun is giving me more strength than I thought. You know, you have the strength to fight evil spirits after completing the training in Sayajiri Mountain. As long as there is one with the Nichiren sword, you can fight and even kill the lowest level evil spirits. From now on, you'll train with me. I'll teach you swordsmanship tailored to water breathing. Ningtaki Sakanji shook his head, looking at Byakuren. Yes, Master Ningtaki. Byakuren's eyes lit up, and he yelled back, *perfect. I can use the excuse of training to practice with Master Ningtaki, ***. That way, I can sharpen my reflexes even better than with those traps. ***. Traps are static, but people are dynamic. Their moves can adapt. ***. He dug back into his rice bowl, shoveling in the food. Despite using the breath of the sun, Byakuren was still exhausted from running around all night. He was starving. He felt like he could eat a whole cow. Ningtaki Sakanji must have known, which is why he made such a big pot of hot pot. Jintaki Sato ate a little this time, and left the rest to Bai Lan to destroy. Bai Lan completed this task perfectly. Here, put this on. It's your training gear. Those clothes you were wearing aren't suitable for breathing techniques. Rintaki Sakanji handed Byakuren a set of clothes after he finished eating. Byakuren suddenly realized he was still wearing just pants and a shirt. In this era of the world, his clothes are incompatible with him. He is very patient when he has not asked anyone recently. If it were him, he would definitely not have the patience to see a person who is out of tune with this era. He would be curious and ask. Thank you, Master Ningtaki. Byakuren took the clothes, grateful. Alright, we'll start swordsmanship practice tomorrow morning. Get some sleep. Ningtaki Sakanji nodded, said his piece, and left. Got it, Master Ningtaki. Chapter 5. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Early that morning, the sun barely up, Bai Lan was jolted awake. It wasn't a natural awakening, she was used to sleeping in, but Ningtaki Sakanji had other plans. Wearing the training clothes he'd given her the night before, Bai Lan followed him into the mountains. They soon arrived at a bamboo forest. Here. Ningtaki Sakanji tossed her a wooden sword. Bai Lan caught it easily, no fumbling. Having mastered sun breathing, her strength and reflexes were already far beyond normal. Her body reacted automatically to the thrown sword, like a pure instinct. It felt incredible. Before, if someone threw a wooden sword at her, she'd have freaked out about getting hit, her mind racing. Under those circumstances, she probably would have gotten smacked. This new instinctive reaction made it clear, she was fundamentally different now. Ningtaki Sakanji seemed pleased, nodding in approval. He began teaching her the sword techniques to complement water breathing. I'll demonstrate, watch closely, he instructed. He wanted to see if Bai Lan could pick up the swordplay after just watching him, the same way she'd mastered water breathing. Understood, Master Lentaki, Bai Lan replied, feeling a bit awkward. She'd already mastered water breathing, but kept up appearances. Lentaki Sakanji didn't reply. He moved to a clearing a few yards away and began to practice the water breathing forms. He went through all 10, one after the other. The surrounding bamboo paid the price, getting hacked to pieces in the process. Well? He asked, sheathing his sword, his masked face expectant. Bai Lan was silent for a long moment, then adopted the ready stance. Lentaki Sakanji's eyes widened behind his mask. Is this kid for real? He wondered, stunned. Bai Lan's next actions confirmed his suspicions. She gripped her wooden sword and began to swing, her movements precise, mirroring his perfectly, and then. Is it my imagination? Does she already have better sword skills than me? He watched her flawless performance in silence. As time wore on, Lentaki Sakanji became certain, Bai Lan's water-breathing swordplay was superior to his own. Last night, she just listened to his explanation and immediately mastered water-breathing. Not just mastered it, but achieved an advanced, polished state. And today, after just one demonstration, she'd picked up the swordplay and was already better at it than he was. Bai Lan was already his equal in water-breathing. She was a monster. For the first time, Lentaki Sakanji felt powerless. Having a disciple this talented wasn't necessarily a good thing. It was like he had nothing left to teach. Soon, Bai Lan had run through all the water-breathing forms, from 1st to 10th. How was that, Master Kentaki? She asked, putting her sword away. His voice was a little hoarse when he spoke. Excellent. You've mastered the water-breathing sword techniques, so there's nothing more I can teach you there. From here on, you need sparring practice. Great. Bai Lan nodded quickly. That was exactly what she wanted. She already knew the water-breathing swordplay. She needed a sparring partner to hone her skills and gain combat experience. Get ready. Lentaki Saru commanded, gripping his sword with both hands. In the past, he'd always guided his students one-handed, because they were beginners who needed constant correction, but this was different. Bai Lan's swordsmanship was already impressive. His only advantages were greater experience and a stronger physique. He wasn't about to underestimate her. Otherwise, this first lesson could be a disaster. Hearing this, Bai Lan's expression turned serious. She gripped her sword with both hands, her eyes burning. In an instant, she instinctively entered a fighting stance. This is incredible. My senses are suddenly heightened. I can feel every tiny movement around me. Is this because I've mastered the perfect breathing method? She wondered, lost in the moment. Across from her, Lentaki Sakanji noticed her state. Her fighting stance was so perfect, even he couldn't match it. But after being stunned twice already, he wasn't as shocked as before. Am I getting used to this? He thought wryly. He quickly shook off the thought. Here I come. He shouted, and charged toward Bai Lan in a blur. He was so fast, Bai Lan struggled to follow his movements, but her body reacted instinctively, parrying his attack. Bang, a shockwave rippled out from their clashing swords. Lentaki Sakanji appeared in front of her, his wooden sword slamming into hers. She couldn't see my attack, but still managed a perfect defense. Bai Lan, you're a natural warrior. Chapter 6. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Bai Lan was dead wrong. After actually throwing down, Bai Lan realized his fighting skills were non-existent. He'd just been winging it. Based on what Sakanji Urokadaki said, the guy was a natural-born fighter. His body had an almost instinctive understanding of combat. During their sparring session, Bai Lan immediately activated the transparent world, anticipating Urokadaki's movements before they happened. The problem was, he was a total newbie. Reacting wasn't easy, but he did react, and surprisingly well. He blocked, parried, and even launched some decent counterattacks. He was able to hold his own against Urokadaki, at least for a little while. The only reason he wasn't completely getting destroyed was because his physical strength couldn't yet match Urokadaki's. Once his body caught up, he'd be able to kick Urokadaki's butt. No wonder I could deal with those other guys so easily before. My fighting instincts must have been kicking in already. But now, with a real fight, those instincts are developing even faster. I can still get stronger. He gripped his wooden sword so hard his knuckles turned white. The fight between Bai Lan and Urokadaki was a blur. a whirlwind of motion. It reminded him of the transcendental battle he'd witnessed between Zhu Yuzhen Tianyuan and Xian Lu, right before he was transported through time. Fueled by his rapidly developing instincts and his mastery of breathing techniques, Bai Lan's offensive was starting to rival Urokadaki's. Urokodaki, on the other hand, was bordering on terrified. Not just surprised, but genuinely frightened. Initially, he could tell Bai Lan had zero formal training. His blocks were clumsy and hesitant, but Bai Lan's instincts were sharp. He could instinctively defend against Urokadaki's attacks. That alone shocked him. But Bai Lan's growth rate quickly escalated from shocking to downright scary. In a matter of minutes, the sparring session had morphed from a teaching exercise into a full-blown competition. A real fight. No more holding back. And it was evenly matched, and Urokadaki was supposed to have the advantage. The only reason they were even was because Urokadaki was physically stronger and hit harder, but Bai Lan was compensating with raw instinct and surprisingly good swordsmanship, making it impossible for Urokadaki to press his advantage. He'd said Bai Lan was a natural fighter. Maybe it seemed like an exaggeration then, but now Urokadaki knew it was the truth. The sparring session lasted for over 2 hours before they finally stopped. In the second half, Bai Lan had actually started to push Urokadaki back. Urokadaki was on the defensive for the first time, all because of Bai Lan's stamina running out. If we kept going, Bai Lan might actually beat me. Urokadaki thought, watching Bai Lan lying on the ground, gasping for air. Can you even move? Urokadaki asked calmly, sitting down. No way. I can't do any more rounds for now. Give me an hour. Bai Lan said, closing his eyes and focusing on his breathing. Don't push yourself. You're spent. Let's call it a day. Urokadaki said, shaking his head. He wasn't about to let Bai Lan overdo it. He knew the importance of moderation. Bai Lan had already pushed himself way too hard for his first day. Any more and it could be dangerous. The reason he'd asked if Bai Lan could move was just to encourage him to get up and go home, but Urokadaki stopped, frowning slightly under his mask. That breathing pattern, that's not water breathing. What is this kid doing? Urokadaki realized Bai Lan's breathing wasn't water breathing at all. It was something completely different, and he was worried. Messing with breathing techniques could be harmful, but then Urokadaki hesitated. Since the dawn of breathing techniques, demon slayers hadn't been limited to just the original 5. Some had adapted them, creating their own variations. If an ordinary student tried to invent their own breathing technique without mastering the basics, Urokadaki would shut it down immediately, but this was Bai Lan. Considering everything he'd seen, Urokadaki started to believe Bai Lan might actually be capable of it. Let this kid try it. If he can develop a breathing technique that suits him best, that would be incredible. Urokadaki thought. He tensed up, focusing on Bai Lan. He'd intervene if anything went wrong, but Urokadaki was completely mistaken. Bai Lan wasn't inventing a new breathing technique. He was using sun breathing to absorb sunlight and restore his energy. It was an extended effect of sun breathing's ability to enhance the body, but this ability had only ever been used for daily practice. Not in battle. Even Yorichi Tsujikuni, the originator of sun breathing, had never used it that way. The problem was, demons only appeared at night. There was no sunlight to take advantage of. Under Urokadaki's gaze, Bai Lan's face regained its color, losing the pallor of exhaustion. Seeing it, Urokadaki wondered. Did he pull it off? And Bai Lan confirmed his suspicions, his voice ringing out. Urokadaki-sensei, I'm all rested up. Let's go another round. Urokadaki. Chapter 7. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Did you develop your own breathing style? Sakanji Urokadaki asked, after a moment of silence, studying Byakuren. Byakuren blinked, surprised, then smiled and nodded. Well, I guess you could say that. The breathing style I'm using now is a bit different from the water breathing you taught me, Master Urokadaki. I found a technique that just clicked for me, Byakuren explained. Still smiling, Urokadaki nodded. Like that explained everything. Without another word, Urokadaki stood and assumed a fighting stance. He wouldn't interfere with Byakuren's unique breathing style. His job now was to prepare her to stand on her own. While he was impressed with her progress and knew she could already kill demons, the final test on Fujikase Mountain was necessary to officially join the Demon Slayer Corps. Still, Urokodaki planned to continue training her. He sensed she still had room to grow under his guidance. Byakuren mirrored his movements instantly, adopting her own fighting stance. The next moment, both figures vanished in a blur. The bamboo forest echoed with the sounds of wooden swords clashing. It was a brutal sparring match. Both threw themselves into it completely. Towering bamboo stalks were snapped and crushed until the setting sun forced them to stop and return to the hut at the foot of the mountain. For the next 2 weeks, Byakuren lived and breathed training. She spent her days sparring with Urokodaki and her nights resting at the foot of the mountain. It's worth noting that the next day, their weapons changed. They now used a Nichiren blade, a unique Nichiren blade in the hands of a cultivator. Unlike the custom-made Nichiren blades forged after passing the final selection, this one was a step below, crafted for training purposes. For half a month, Byakuren trained with the breath of the sun every day, constantly improving. Within 2 weeks, her physical abilities rivaled Urokodaki's. Her previous weaknesses were gone. And during this time, Byakuren's strength skyrocketed. For the first 3 days, Urokodaki could hold his own against her. But by the 4th day, Byakuren completely overwhelmed him. While Byakuren's comprehension wasn't the best, her fighting instincts were incredible. In just days, she surpassed the battle-hardened Urokodaki. This was due to the breath of the sun enhancing her body. While ordinary people could only push their bodies to human limits, Byakuren absorbed the sun's energy to strengthen herself. In just a few days, her physique matched Urokodaki's. Combined with her innate talent and the breath of the sun, it was inevitable. Starting tomorrow, you'll train on your own. I have nothing left to teach you. That night, Urokodaki prepared a lavish dinner and announced this while serving Byakuren. Byakuren took the bowl, a skeptical look on her face. Master Urokodaki, are you sure you've given it your all? Despite her words, she had some doubts. Even though Urokodaki was now a cultivator, he was still a former Hashira. Could he really have been surpassed so quickly? It seemed disrespectful to his Hashira status. Hearing this, Urokodaki's face darkened behind his mask. Asterisk, do you think everyone's a monster like you? Asterisk, he wanted to shout, but held back. I hate to admit it, but you're already stronger than me. You're already strong enough to be a pillar in the Demon Slayer Corps. But first, you have to pass the final selection on Fujikase Mountain. The final selection is in 1 month. Train on your own until then. Urokodaki said, then abruptly stood and left. He was worried he might lose his temper if he stayed any longer. Byakuren was silent, then shook her head, amused. Pillar? I'm already at the pillar level. So, am I stronger than Michiro Takedo? Michiro Takedo became a pillar in 2 months, and I became one in half a month. Eat up. Then keep training tomorrow. Even with pillar-level strength, I can still get stronger. Muttering to herself, Byakuren shook her head and continued eating. She was now looking forward to the final selection. Her golden finger needed comprehension points, and the best source of those points was killing demons. Indiscriminately killing innocent people was out of the question, so hunting demons was the only option, but demons were rare, and finding them wasn't easy. That's why Byakuren wanted to join the Demon Slayer Corps. The Corps had a powerful intelligence network called the Kikushi that gathered information on demons. By becoming a member, Byakuren could hunt demons using their intel. The demons on Fujikase Mountain were the perfect starting point. They were plentiful, eliminating them all would be a very rich harvest. After finishing a large pot of hot pot, Byakuren washed up and went to sleep. This had been her routine for the past 2 weeks, training, eating, sleeping, repeat. The next morning, Byakuren took her Nichiren blade and headed into the mountains early. Below, near the hut, Urokodaki watched her go. After a while, he returned to the hut, sat at a small table, picked up a brush, and began to write, asterisk to my lord, asterisk. Chapter 8. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Time flew by, and before he knew it, a month had passed, the Demon Slayer's final selection at Mount Fujikasen was finally here. I won't say anything unnecessary. Just come back in one piece. Urokadaki Sakanji said simply, standing in front of the wooden house. He didn't give Bai Lan a fox mask like he had with his other disciples. Those masks were meant to be amulets, tokens of his prayers for their safety, but Bai Lan was different. He wasn't like the other students Urokadaki had trained. Truth be told, Bai Lan was a shoo-in for the final selection. It was already a done deal. With his pillar-level strength, Mount Fujikasen posed no real threat to him. Got it, Urokadaki-sensei, Bai Lan nodded, then turned and ran down the mountain. Honestly, Bai Lan was a bit bummed that he hadn't met Sabito and Mikomo like Tanjiro had. Over the past couple of weeks, Bai Lan had figured out when he was, Urokadaki Sakanji was only in his 60s, not yet 70. Tomioka Ju had joined him 4 years earlier and become a candidate. He'd passed the final selection 2 years before, at age 15, and joined the Demon Slayer Corps as a full member. That meant Sabito was dead. As for Mikomo, who knows? Maybe Bai Lan's growth had been too fast, without any bottlenecks. Maybe that's why Mikomo hadn't appeared to guide his training like she had with Tanjiro, but then again, his progress was so incredible that even Urokadaki Sakanji, a former water pillar, had been impressed in just a month. Sabito couldn't compare. With that kind of power, he didn't need guidance from Sabito, a candidate who hadn't even officially joined the Demon Slayer Corps. Leaving Sajiri Mountain, Byakuran followed the map that Urokadaki Sakanji had given him, heading full speed toward Mount Fujikasen. Meanwhile, at Demon Slayer HQ, Ubuyashiki Kagaya, only 19, was looking at a letter in his hand. His health was starting to decline. The letter had been sent by Urokadaki Sakanji via hawk overnight. Because of the distance, the hawk hadn't arrived until early that morning, but Ubuyashiki Kagaya had been resting, so the hawk hadn't disturbed him. It wasn't until just now that Ubuyashiki Kagaya had received the letter from the attendant. Ubuyashiki Kagaya was alone, his wife wasn't with him. Ubuyashiki Amane was already at Mount Fujikasen. This year, she was hosting the Demon Slayer final selection. To think, he could defeat Urokadaki-sensei after holding a sword for only half a month. I never expected such a powerful kid to appear among the Demon Slayer candidates. After reading Urokadaki Sakanji's letter, Ubuyashiki Kagaya's expression didn't change, and his tone was calm as always. Only those who knew Ubuyashiki Kagaya well could tell how excited he was beneath his calm demeanor. As the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps, he wanted it to grow stronger more than anyone. Now, knowing that such a monster had appeared among the Demon Slayer candidates, how could he not be thrilled? If his health weren't so poor, Ubuyashiki Kagaya would have left for Sajiri Mountain immediately to visit Byakuran in person. Feeling his body weaken, Ubuyashiki Kagaya pushed those thoughts aside. Then, he picked up the pen and ink he had prepared earlier and began to reply. The reply was simple. First, he greeted Urokadaki Sakanji, then he got to the point. Ubuyashiki Kagaya mentioned that he hoped to meet Byakuran. As for how, he would have Amane's people bring Byakuran over. However, he didn't force it. He asked Urokadaki Sakanji to ask Bai Lan first. If Bai Lan agreed, then he would send Amane's people to pick him up. If he didn't agree, then he wouldn't force it. Although he was the leader of the Demon Slayer Corps, Ubuyashiki Kagaya treated its members gently. He didn't use his position to force them to do anything. If his body weren't so weak, and if he could practice at all, he would have picked up a Nichiren sword and hunted demons with the members of the Demon Slayer Corps. Soon, Ubuyashiki Kagaya's letter was written. He summoned a messenger and handed the letter to him, asking him to deliver it to Sajiri Mountain. Meanwhile, Byakuran had started out early that morning. Since he didn't have to rush, Byakuran took his time. He lingered for a day, and didn't arrive at Mount Fujikasen until sunset. The area around Mount Fujikasen was covered in wisteria flowers. Even the torii gate at the top of the mountain was draped in wisteria vines. In the dark night, the blooming wisteria flowers were gorgeous and eye-catching. It was enough to make people linger, and even Bai Lan was drawn in for a moment, but he didn't stay long. He admired it briefly and then rushed toward the mountain. When he reached the torii gate at the top, there were already plenty of people there. By Bai Lan's rough count, at least 30, they were all Demon Slayer candidates trained by various instructors. When Bai Lan arrived, they glanced at him, then looked away, ignoring him. Everyone was conserving their energy, Bai Lan didn't care. He looked around quickly, and when he didn't see anyone familiar, he found a tree, leaned against it, and rested. Soon, more candidates arrived. Over an hour later, it was finally time for the final selection. A white-haired woman in a kimono, surrounded by 2 servants, walked slowly out from behind the torii gate. Even Bai Lan was taken aback and couldn't help but sigh. She really is beautiful. No wonder Takedo Machiro calls her the birch tree fairy. It was none other than Ubuyashiki Amane, Ubuyashiki Kagaya's wife. Ubuyashiki Amane was the most beautiful woman Bai Lan had ever seen. If he hadn't known who she was and that she was married, Bai Lan might have been tempted to hit on her. After all, a fair lady is sought after by every gentleman. Although Bai Lan didn't mind a genin-style romance, he wouldn't break up a happy home. Chapter 9. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Amane Ubuyashiki's presence was striking, but Bai Lan and the others didn't dwell on it. With a few words of encouragement, the selection officially began. Bai Lan and the others immediately headed into Fujikasane Mountain. As they disappeared into the wisteria-covered slopes, Amane quietly watched Bai Lan's figure from in front of the torii gate. Is that the prodigy Kintaki-sensei mentioned? Although she'd arrived earlier, Amane had received a message from Kagaya Ubuyashiki that evening, informing her about Byakuren. She also knew about his background. Amane was truly happy to hear about Byakuren. Like Kagaya, she cared deeply for the Demon Slayer Corps. The stronger its members, the better their chances of survival. Ever since becoming the mistress of the Ubuyashiki clan, she'd been haunted by news of the Demon Slayer Corps' losses in battle. It was a burden she carried, but she also understood the necessity. Without the Demon Slayer Corps hunting down demons, chaos would reign. A powerful demon slayer like Byakuren had a real shot at making it. Closing her eyes and shaking her head slightly, Amane Ubuyashiki silently prayed for the aspiring slayers participating in the selection. Meanwhile, after entering Fujikasane Mountain, Bai Lan quickly began searching for the demon's presence. Over the past 2 weeks, he'd learned water breathing and sun breathing from Urokodaki Sakanji, and also a skill Urokodaki used to detect demons. It wasn't based on scent, but rather a method Urokodaki had developed using his unusually keen sense of smell. This method could pick up the faint aura of demons in the air. Byakuren was currently using this technique, although it was almost unnecessary for Bai Lan. He barely had to lift a finger before a demon came knocking. Within minutes of entering Fujikasane Mountain, Bai Lan detected a demonic presence less than 100 yards away, heading straight for him. 3 heads all at once. You shouldn't have. Sensing the 3 demons approaching from different directions, Bai Lan smirked. He was more than happy to oblige, stopping and waiting for them to arrive. The demons weren't working together, and they were moving at different speeds. They didn't reach Bai Lan at the same time. After about 7 or 8 seconds, the first demon appeared. It looked similar to the demons Bai Lan had encountered when he first arrived: grayish skin, ferocious face. While humanoid, it was clearly monstrous. The sight of it made Bai Lan's expression twist with disgust. The demon reeked of a nauseating, rancid odor. Bai Lan couldn't quite place the smell, but he had a pretty good idea. It was the unmistakable stench of someone who'd been eating people. Bai Lan didn't give the demon a chance to speak. As soon as it appeared, Bai Lan instinctively attacked, with his Nichiren blade drawn. Bai Lan's incredible physique allowed him terrifying speed. He appeared behind the demon in a flash. Before the demon could even react, a sharp pain shot through its neck, and it rapidly turned to ash, leaving it no time for a final word. For other breath users, demons would gradually turn to ash after having their necks cut off, but this particular demon was incredibly weak, truly the dregs of demonkind. Otherwise, it wouldn't have ended up here. And it was facing Bai Lan, one of the only 2 beings in the world who had mastered sun breathing, and the only demon slayer who had perfectly mastered it. The instant Bai Lan severed its neck, its head exploded into ash in less than a second. At the same time, the system chimed in Bai Lan's mind. Ding! Kill the demon, gain 10 comprehension points. Not bad at all. Just like Urokodaki-sensei said, I'm a natural. But only 10 points for such a weakling. So, if I hunt down 9 more like that, I can use the 10-fold comprehension boost. 99 would give me the 100-fold increase. There are plenty of demons in Fujikasane Mountain. I gotta hustle. but I can't let anyone else get there first. Although, I doubt any of these newbies with their weak auras could kill these demons. Mumbling to himself, Bai Lan took the initiative. He rushed off in one direction, and in the blink of an eye, a head went flying. This was another of the 3 demons that had been stalking Bai Lan. Against this kind of demon, Bai Lan was a one-hit wonder. After killing the demon, a notification popped in Bai Lan's mind, reminding him that he'd gained 10 comprehension points. Just like the first one, Bai Lan paid it no mind. After killing the demon, he quickly spun around and charged off in another direction. In the direction Bai Lan had turned, a demon was staring at him blankly. His pale face revealed surprise and fear. It had clearly witnessed Bai Lan's swift work. Bai Lan had easily taken out 2 of its kind, filling it with a deep sense of dread. The next moment, the demon turned and fled without hesitation. But Bai Lan couldn't simply let the source of comprehension points get away. Ding! Kill the demon, gain 10 comprehension points. Chapter 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Demon Slayer Corps' final selection lasts 7 days. Survive those 7 days on Mount Fujikasane, and you're in. Bai Lan's trial was the same deal, except, unlike everyone else desperately trying to stay alive, Bai Lan went on the offensive immediately, hunting demons all night long. Mount Fujikasane is huge. After a full night of searching, Bai Lan only managed to find 10 demons. Counting the first 3, her comprehension points exceeded 100, enough for a 10-fold boost, but Bai Lan held off. After that last 100-fold increase, she wasn't too confident in her own understanding. 100 times just to nail the breath of the sun? Was 10 times even worth it? So, Bai Lan decided to wait until she hit 1,000 points before going for another 100-fold increase. From now on, every boost would be 100-fold. With all the potential demon slayers occupied on Mount Fujikasane, only demons and nature remained. Over the past 2 weeks, besides sparring with Urokodaki Sakanji and mastering the breath of the sun, Bai Lan had explored more of his system. The comprehension boost wasn't just for learning from others, she could use it to understand things herself. By observing others using their abilities, Bai Lan could master them by using this boost, just like when Urokodaki Sakanji taught her. Even if Urokodaki hadn't broken down the breathing method step by step, Bai Lan could still have grasped it by using the comprehension boost. Since Urokodaki's breathing method was at full throttle these days, Bai Lan could understand its essence and master it. The same went for demons. The moment a demon used its blood demon art, Bai Lan could use comprehension enhancement to master that ability. Bai Lan already had a goal for her next comprehension increase, to understand the demon's regeneration ability. Breathing techniques could speed up healing, but they couldn't compare to a demon's ability to regrow limbs. If she could understand demon regeneration, she'd be even safer. Bai Lan was confident that regeneration gained through the system wouldn't be tied to demon nature, or weakness to sunlight. Though comprehension amplification wasn't always perfect, it wouldn't come with that kind of drawback. With the enhanced breath of the sun and powerful regeneration, Byakuren would become the perfect creature Muzan Kibutsuji craved. Where's that hand demon hiding? I've been searching all night, she wondered, her warm gaze sweeping through the forest. Sitting by a bonfire, a grilled fish in her hand, Bai Lan chewed with her mouth full and mumbled, "Can't find him anywhere." It was morning now, and after a night of hunting, Bai Lan was taking a break. She'd caught the fish in a nearby stream. The Demon Slayer Corps didn't provide food for the final selection. Figuring out how to eat was part of the test, but Mount Fujikasane was abundant. With some effort, you could find everything you needed to survive. Like Bai Lan's current setup, finding the hand demon was her main goal for the night. Though Urokodaki Sakanji hadn't taught her much directly, she wouldn't have gained this power without him. Byakuren always repaid her debts. That's why, before coming to Mount Fujikasane, Byakuren had decided to repay Rintagaki Sakanji. Eliminating the danger was Byakuren's way of repaying him. Except for Tomioka Ju, none of the other potential demon slayers trained by Ninataki Sakanji over the years had successfully become members of the Demon Slayer Corps. The reason was the hand demon in Fujiwara. He was caught and thrown by Ninataki Sakanji. The hand demon, who had been in the mountains for decades, hated Kintaki Sakanji with all his heart. Therefore, after Kintaki Sakanji became a trainer, Teigi discovered the breathing swordsman reserve trained by Kintaki Sakanji. His own revenge. Each trial, the hand demon sought out and devoured Urokadaki's students, seeking revenge. This had cast a shadow over Urokadaki's work as a trainer. Byakuren was ready to end it all and erase that shadow, but she couldn't find the hand demon all night. Bai Lan was frustrated. In the manga, Tanjiro ran into the guy on the first night. Why wasn't she getting that kind of treatment? Was it because she wasn't the protagonist? Disappointed, Byakuren scarfed down the rest of her fish and headed back to the stream. After cleaning up for a bit, she came back to where she had left her stuff, finding his clothes half wet. Finding a sunny spot, Bai Lan lay down, rest up, then hunt more demons tonight. As Bai Lan rested, the invisible energy of the sun was drawn in by the breath of the sun, subtly strengthening her body. Time passed. As the sun set, Bai Lan's eyes snapped open. Time to hunt.